Blood Moon Rising, Episode 5, A Narrow Escape.
The crags lie just over the hill,
Tyr said as he traipsed through the underbrush. Vidarr peered over the ledge and saw their longship beached on the sand. He looked to the right and saw jagged rocks jut out from the tree line. The crags. A sly grin slid across his face. Saksbøjrn's hoard was incredibly close to the longship. It was just a short jaunt away.
Ingun,
Vidarr called out. She jogged toward him, clutching her shield.
Yes, Lord.
go ready the longship. Take Grim, One Eye, and Scar with you. The rest of us will get the hoard.
Ingun furrowed her brow.
I want to go with you,
Not this time.
but I'm ready to fight.
Now is not the time to argue. I need you to prepare the ship.
But
Ingun,
what about her?
she is coming with me. I cannot find the hoard without her.
As you wish.
Go. Daylight is fading quickly.
Ingun scurried off and headed down the hill.
Vidarr,
Tyr pointed out to the raging sea.
look.
Clouds thickened on the horizon. A faint rumble of thunder rolled across the sky. Vidarr took a deep breath and exhaled.
A storm is brewing.
It is a sign.
The gods do not want you to claim the hoard.
Vidarr turned to her and smiled.
The gods are sending the four winds to carry us home after we claim it.
Night will fall soon.
Tyr said, brandishing his sword.
Pair off.
Vidarr turned to his warriors and ordered.
Ready your weapons. Kill anything that breathes.
2 by 2, Vidarr's army descended the mountain, weaving through the pines, wading through the underbrush. Sticks and pebbles crunched under his feet as he led the way. Each step brought him closer to the crags. Courage flowed through him. The thrill of impending victory surged through his blood. A smile curled his lips as they splashed through a mountain stream. Vidarr glanced over to Kindra and saw dread flash across her face. After everything she had gone through, her apprehension was understandable. And now, she had no weapon. Vidarr and the others hiked over boulders and crossed fallen trees. The sun hung low in the west as night slowly consumed the sky. Darkness started to engulf the forest, melting the last remnants of light into nothing. Crickets and other nocturnal creatures started to sing their songs. A cool breeze blew through a myriad of branches, distorting shadows along the trail.
There it is.
Tyr whispered, pointing to the cluster of rocks that shot up from the dunes.
The crags.
Vidarr murmured. He turned to Kindra and watched her eyes widen.
Show us where it is. Lead us to the hoard.
Kindra swallowed hard and took a step forward. There was no way to get out of this, she thought. This man would not heed her warnings in spite of seeing the death and destruction of her beloved village. He was determined to take Saksbøjrn's hoard no matter what the cost. Hopefully, the man-beasts were nowhere near the site. She sighed woefully. No matter what she said or did, there was nothing she could do to stop it.
Come,
She whispered.
follow me.
Vidarr followed her lead as they trudged through the sand. The wind began to whip harder, lashing across his face. Sunlight fought the darkness that spread across the sky. Drawing in a deep breath, he listened to the ocean waves slam against the beach. A thin layer of mist fell on his face as salt permeated the air. Flashes of lightning illuminated the thick clouds, casting an eerie glow over the crags. As they drew closer, the serrated rocks looked like rows of teeth protruding from the earth. Kindra turned to him once more. Her body trembled in fear.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Show me the silver.
He said, as raindrops began to fall. She turned and began to ascend, stride by stride. Kindra climbed one boulder at a time, stepping on the large stones leading to the crags. Straddling 2 peaks, she reached for the rock ledge above her. Tiny pebbles scratched the pads of her fingers as she secured a firm hold. With all the strength that she could muster, Kindra slowly hoisted herself over the shelf and faded into the darkness. After securing his shield with the leather strap that draped across his back, Vidarr turned to his men and said,
Wait for my signal.
Tyr nodded. Vidarr tramped up the hill and stood on the large boulder that led to the crags. Following her path, he balanced his body on two rocky spikes that shot up from the ground. He looked up and saw the ledge just above his head. Arms outstretched, he curled his fingers on the rough sill and began to hoist himself up, muscles flexing. He coiled his arms and slowly dragged his body onto the edge. After scrambling to his feet, he looked around and discovered that the rim opened up into a large cave. The wind stirred around him. Rain began to pour. He heard something in the distance. A voice.
Vidarr.
He turned his head toward the velvety tones that bewitched him. Each word echoed in the darkness.
Come here.
Suddenly, a bolt of lightning illuminated the cavern. Vidarr saw Kyndra, standing in the shadows, soaked to the bone. Silky black hair flowed down across her shoulders as she leaned forward seductively.
I know what you want. I can see it in your eyes.
Vidarr felt his heart pound against his chest. He watched her amber-colored eyes flicker in the darkness. She tilted her head and smiled, running her hand down the contour of her body.
Is this the treasure you seek?
A wave of heat shot through Vidarr. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he gasped for air. Something primal was taking over him. The need to kill was overwhelming. A low growl escaped his lips as Kyndra enticed him to come closer. Seducing him, she beguiled him. His skin started to tingle. Every nerve in his body burned. Panic filled the pit in his stomach. Something was happening to him. He looked down and watched his fingernails lengthen. Hair sprouted from his palms. Pain shot through his mouth. His teeth grew into fangs. Suddenly, screams ricocheted through his mind as a flash of light blinded him.
My lord,
Kyndra called out, breaking the spell.
what is the matter?
Vidarr shook his head and looked at his hands. He was human again, nothing was amiss. His heart pounded violently. Terror surged through his veins. He wiped the sweat from his forehead. He turned and stared at Kyndra. She was glaring at him. A surly grin curled her lips. This woman had to have bewitched him. Did she have the power to change him into an animal? A wolf warrior? A bull deer?
You look unwell.
He clutched his axe as tensions heightened.
Stay back.
Lord Vidarr, what is wrong?
What have you done to me?
I don't know what you are talking about.
Where is it? Where is the hoard?
We should go.
No.
Vidarr lunged forward, pushing her against the cave wall. Rough rocks gouged Kyndra's back as she fought to break free. Something had possessed him, something savage and untamed. There was no way she could combat the brute who had pinned her to the wall. She was at his mercy.
The hoard is in there.
She pointed to a small opening between two large rocks. Sweat trickled down Vidarr's temples. Heat flooded his senses. He released Kyndra, feeling her slip through his arms. Silently, he stared at the mound of rubble that was only a few feet away. Saksbøjrn's precious hoard would soon be at his fingertips. With a turn of his head, he placed 2 fingers between his lips and whistled. One by one, dark shadows outlined the mouth of the cave, slithering inside quietly.
Start digging.
Vidarr ordered, wiping his brow. 2 warriors got down on their hands and knees, clearing debris from the opening. Rocks and dirt flew across the cave. A dusty haze rose from the opening. The earthy smell of soil permeated the air. Little by little, the pit grew larger than what Vidarr had expected.
How much deeper can it get?
Keep digging.
Vidarr snapped, wondering if Kyndra had tricked him. He glanced over to where she was and found her huddled in a corner. No matter how pitiful she looked, he would make her pay a terrible price if she had deceived him.
I hope you haven't lied to me.
Vidarr,
Tyr shouted as the others uncovered something shiny from the pit.
look.
Let me through.
Vidarr said, pushing past the others. Kneeling down, he rummaged through the treasure. 4 goblets, a handful of hack silver, several brooches, a few ingots, 2 large silver crosses. and a lead box caked with mud and debris.
This is the largest hoard I have ever seen.
Saksbøjrn did well. It is unfortunate that he did not live long enough to enjoy it.
Suddenly, a low growl rumbled through the cavern.
What was that?
Harkon asked, drying his sword.
Thunder.
Alric replied nervously.
It was just thunder.
Another snarl ripped through the darkness. Something sinister lurked in the shadows. Vidarr and his men readied their weapons. Kindra shot Vidarr a dreadful look.
I warned you. Now they're here.
White-knuckled, Vidarr brandished his axe and stepped forward.
Take what you can and get back to the longship.
The men swooped down and grabbed handfuls of treasure. One by one, Alric ushered them out.
Go. Get out of here. Now.
Within minutes, they were heading toward the ledge. Only Vidarr and Tyr were left in the cave. Vidarr stared into the pit. He spied the lead box.
Leave it.
No, there must be something very valuable locked inside.
We have enough.
We leave nothing behind.
Grabbing the handle, Vidarr dragged it out from the rocky tomb. It was cumbersome, but he was determined to take it. The box had to hold more riches than just a few trinkets. Another roar tore through the cavern.
We need to go. Now.
Vidarr dragged the box across the cavern floor. Tyr grabbed one of the handles and started toward the shelf. He looked over the cliff and saw the others descend the steep rocks. Tyr drew a deep breath and asked,
How are we going to do this?
Carefully.
Tyr slid down the ledge and straddled the jagged rocks with his feet. He skirted down the boulders, slipping on the wet surface. From out of the corner of his eye, he saw a shadow appear on the rim before it melted into one of the narrow crevices.
Hurry!
He yelled as his stomach tightened.
Hold on.
Vidarr untied his shield and threw it aside. He threaded the leather strap through the handle and knotted it. Once secured, he lowered the lead box as far as it would go. It dangled freely, swaying in the wind. Come on, he thought, watching Tyr extend his arms. Just reach a little farther.
Got it.
Tyr grabbed the box and stabilized it between two rocky pillars. He waited for the belt to release before securing it again. With a heave and a shove, he lowered it a few more feet.
I'm right behind you.
Vidarr exclaimed as he started his descent, grabbing the slippery shelf, sliding his fingers over the rocks. Rain stung his eyes, burned his flesh. He threw his leg over and balanced himself on two narrow peaks. His right boot skidded to the side, almost propelling him off the cliff. Dread shot through him. The hairs on his arms stood on end. With a quick twist of his body, he regained his balance and leaned forward. He crouched along the rock wall and scrambled down the embankment.
Keep going.
Tyr yelled while skimming the steep cliff. Suddenly, he heard a growl behind him. He looked up, watching a black wolf scurry down the rocks. Vidarr gasped. A pair of amber eyes shimmered brightly. Snarling, growling, the beast was hunting him. Danger closed in. The wolf drew closer. The beast must have been guarding the treasure. Vidarr and his army had disturbed the wolf's lair, and now it was out for revenge. With trembling fingers, he loosened the strap and felt the leather slip from his hand. The lead box tumbled down the cliff, smashing against boulders, slamming into the wet sand.
Vidarr!
Grab it. Get to the ship.
Vidarr exclaimed as rain pelted him.
Behind you.
Vidarr slowly turned and swallowed the lump of terror that had formed in the back of his throat. Death stared straight at him. Glowing eyes pierced through the darkness, shattering his courage. Putrid breath bathed his flesh. A fine mist drifted from the wolf's wide snout. Raspy pants filled the air as rain dripped off a thick mat of black fur. The beast curled its mouth, exposing a set of sharp fangs. Vidarr's blood ran cold as a menacing growl broke loose around him. Carefully, he slid his hand across the axe that dangled from his side belt, wrapping his fingers around the handle. He could kill the wolf with one blow, but only if he were quick enough. His heart pounded wildly. An icy chill raced down his spine. Every muscle in his body tensed as he clutched the weapon. With a powerful swing, Vidarr swiped his weapon at the wolf. It jumped back, snarling, barking. The beast lunged toward him, snapping its jaws, gnashing its teeth. He could feel its breath scorch his skin.
Odin,
He called to the heavens, lashing out with all of his might.
help me.
Lightning forked across the sky. Thunder exploded overhead. He lost his footing and tumbled down the slope. Rocks battered his body. Debris ripped through his chainmail. Within seconds, he was airborne. Time stopped. He was suspended in midair. Then suddenly, his body slammed into the wet sand. A loud buzz rang in his ears. A groan escaped his lips. Rain pelted his body as he lay sprawled out on the ground. Get up, he thought. He moved his eyes from side to side and ran his fingers along the ground, searching for his axe. Where was his axe? The ground quaked. An ominous roar shook him to the core, vibrating the inside of his ears. He looked up and saw the beast looming over him, ready to strike. Its jagged teeth glinted ferociously. Foam dripped from its terrible mouth, splattering on the sand. The wolf opened its jaws and lunged for Vidarr. He rolled away, dodging another attack of fangs. He scrambled back, biting, snarling. Sweat poured from his brow as he retreated. Then, something hard pressed against his shoulder blades. A rock wall. Vidarr swallowed hard. The beast had backed him into a corner. There was no place to go. His heart throbbed wildly. He closed his eyes and waited for the final blow. Suddenly, Vidarr heard a blood-curdling howl pierce the air. His eyes shot open. Ingunn stood there, withdrawing her sword from the beast's side. Without warning, the wolf whipped around.
Take the head.
With one swift swing, Ingunn brought down her sword. The wolf's body slumped to the ground, lifeless, dead.
Are you all right?
Yes,
Ingunn extended her hand.
We have to get to the ship. Let's go.
Vidarr grabbed her forearm and hoisted himself up. A cold chill raced down his spine as howls echoed in the distance. Vidarr looked around and saw glowing eyes emerge from the tree line. There were more of them, many more than imaginable. Growls filled the air. Terror struck Ingunn.
They're coming.
run.
Vidarr grabbed her hand and dashed down the beach toward the longship. Waves splashed against his boots. Strong winds whipped his body. The muscles in his legs strained, pumping harder.
Go.
She exclaimed, releasing his hand, diving into the chilly waters. Vidarr plunged in and swam toward the boat. Stroke by stroke, he cut the water with his arms and legs. The longship was close, so close that he could almost touch the beams with his fingertips. He reached for the thick rope that dangled on the side, wrapping his fingers around the coarse fibers. He pulled Ingunn to the rope.
Hurry.
After she had climbed to the top, he grabbed hold and started pulling himself up. Hand over hand, he scaled the side as quickly as he could. Muscles straining, he threw a leg over the edge. Alrik and Hakon seized his shoulders and pulled him inside the hull.
Vidarr.
Start rowing. Look.
Scrambling to his feet, Vidarr peered out and saw several pairs of eyes staring into the darkness as the dragon ship floated away. Wolves. Even in the dim moonlight, he could see their jagged teeth gnashing and snapping. His blood ran cold, knowing that he and his crew had barely escaped with their lives.
Tia, is everyone on the ship?
All except Bronn.
He replied breathlessly.
He was ambushed by a pack of those wolves.
Vidarr pursed his lips and stared back at the island. The king will be sorely disappointed, he thought, watching the island fade into the distance. But there was nothing he could have done. He and his army had stumbled onto something malevolent, deadly. Dark forces had taken over Lofoten, and there was nothing he could have done to prevent Bronn's death. He slid down the wooden planks as fear rumbled through his stomach. Never had he felt the terror as he did moments ago. Vidarr was no stranger to battle, but this was something much darker than anything he had ever encountered. Thank the gods most of them had made it out alive. He fought. Still, uneasiness plagued him. He glanced over to Kindra, knees drawn, trembling in terror. Something inside him knew that this was not going to be the last time he would see the beasts of Lofoten. Coming August 15th, 2024. Blood Moon Rising. Episode 6. Marking Territory.